Samantha.
Great to see you too.
Good. Thank you for joining me. It would be wonderful if you could just introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are and a little bit about you.
Yep. So my name is Sam. I am a freelance PR director. I've got over 20 years experience and I've worked in the broad consumer area. So I've done everything from entertainment and tech to retail and crisis and issues. I'm also neurodiverse, dyslexic. Also suspect I'm a bit ADHD. The more there's bit that's been talked about online, the more I'm seeing I've got a lot of those traits as well.
Yeah. Well, no, because I remember back in COVID, we did a session together and you had told me then about your dyslexia and yeah, I was really, as a fellow dyslexic, I was really intrigued then in terms of actually how you worked with that, particularly within the communications industry. So we're looking to do this particular series, which is really about neurodiversity, different minds, better messages. By way of an introduction to myself, I'm Madeleine Weightman. I'm co-founder of The Work Crowd. We're a freelance network. We have a digital platform that supports our community, so connects businesses to independents within our network, working across marketing, communications, PR. So I've got 5 questions I'd love to ask you, which is just really about how, I suppose, how you've managed with your dyslexia and what it means to you. So, dyslexia is often described in terms of what it makes hard, like what it makes harder. But actually experienced PR and communications professionals who are dyslexic can equally describe it as the thing that made them better at their job, like actually their secret superpower. It'd be great to find out from you, Sam, what's your experience, and if so, how?
Yeah, I definitely spent the first 17 years of my career, and I know it's 17 years because there was like a moment where I switched, and I was always just thinking that I wasn't as good as everyone else, that I needed to put extra time in, I needed to work harder, my writing wasn't going to be as good. I'm very creative, and bubbly, but all of these things that I'm not good at, that's what I focused on. And I definitely think there were moments where it held me back in my career. I didn't feel confident enough to ask for promotions and things like that. I just felt not very deserving. And I went through therapy, which was sort of helping me to deal with a lot of other stuff, but also to really identify my sort of self-worth and putting myself down. And then I actually flipped it and looked at the other side to see that there was a brainstorm for a rebrand of a charity.
Yes.
And I walked in, and right at the start of the meeting, when they told us, all of the insights they'd been looking at, I literally within 2 seconds came up with the brand name, and everyone was like, that's it. And that was the end of the meeting. It was a 5-minute meeting. And to me, it was just really obvious, this is what you're telling me the insights are. So therefore, this is what you should call the charity. And that's the name that they went with. And that's out there now. And, there'd be moments like that throughout my career where we'd be talking about something, whether it's a crisis or a problem, and I could just instantly see this is the solution, tell people. Half the time they wouldn't want to listen. And then it might take them, a couple of hours or a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And then they'd come back with exactly the same thing that I had said. But because I came to that solution too quickly, it couldn't be right. I
Yes.
even once had a client who contacted a boss to say, I can't have done a thorough job because I sent something to her too quickly. Like, she asked for it, and 15 minutes later, I'd sent it over in an email. And it was some details on influencers. But for me, it was, if I don't do it now, I'll forget it.
Yeah.
It is a 15-minute task for me because I can just go and, yeah.
Yeah, I think as you say, dyslexic brains are very good at looking at things in the round, and actually, in looking at the round, taking all of those individual parts and very quickly actually honing in on what the solution is. Where, I think just going back to what you said at the start, communications is historically, it's put huge value on spelling and grammar and formal structure, and actually, as a dyslexic, that I can imagine that must have felt like a huge barrier. I know from a personal perspective, my own sort of experience bellies very much what you've said in terms of, for a long time, I sort of felt really embarrassed about my spelling and my punctuation, and really struggled and almost wanted to shy away from writing because of it.
Yeah.
But it'd be great, but equally just hearing you talk, that creative side is what has obviously come out. You've grown in confidence. Now you do a lot in sort of social and influencer marketing, and that obviously really rewards creative pattern recognition, and that sort of cultural instinct over sort of more formal processes. And it moves very fast, values the unexpected angle. You talked a little bit there about it. Do you think that's made it a more natural home for you as someone with dyslexic, rather than that sort of traditional PR? Yeah. And
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
share any examples, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as well as working PR, but not everyone else might know, I also have a side hustle of a dog accessory business. So I'm often on there live selling on TikTok, posting content, and also, doing creator sharing products I'm purchasing and stuff as well. So very much sort of both sides of the influencer space of finding influencers to work with for clients, but also doing stuff myself. And I definitely feel in that perspective from me, I've always had that. This is the, start to finish when we have a brief and we're brainstorming. I can see the whole campaign in my head, every little thing that needs to be done. But to put that down to paper to present it back to a client, is where is not my strength. So that's where I've always felt partnering with a neurotypical person who is
Okay.
a good wordsmith or good strategist is really good, because we can work together to, like, this is what we want to do, but how do we articulate that? I've
Yes.
always been better verbally. So I've always been, in agencies I've worked at, someone that's always gone to pitches. Even one agency, my last day before I left that agency, they took me to a pitch, even though I wasn't going to work on it. It was the weirdest thing, but they knew that I'm just, I'm good in the room. I hate over rehearsing, because that will just mumble it in my head. I just
Yes.
need to know this is the page of what I'm talking about, understand it, and then I'll just, like, in the moment, wing it. I will say everything that needs to be said, but also have the confidence that someone else in the room, if I've missed something, can chip in with a thought, in the same way that if I think someone else has missed a really important part on theirs, I will chip in. And I think that just makes it flow better, and it shows that you're a united team. And
Yeah.
that's always worked really well. Um, but yeah, I definitely think that being able to speak directly to people and say what I want to say, as opposed to having to write it down on words, has helped me a lot. But also having tools like that, the AI tools out there, has been an absolute godsend for me, because I don't even have to type to tell it what I want to say. I can verbally tell it what I want to say, and then ask it to create that into a caption for a social media post, a script for a video that I want to film, or help me to break down the slides for a presentation to present my ideas back to
Yeah.
someone.
And from your perspective, I mean, I totally concur that, AI, as someone with dyslexia, is a total godsend, because it just, the time that you would have spent actually trying to write and structure those sentences, you can almost dump your thoughts and ideas into AI, and it does that hard work for you. What are your thoughts though? Because, I'm intrigued that obviously AI is increasingly, being used. There's a threat in terms of taking jobs, but equally, AI does a lot of the sort of process work for you. You still need that creative ideation. So that's where this thought of, different minds, better messages came from. As someone who is neurodiverse, do you feel all the more that actually with AI, that with the benefit of it, it gives you a real opportunity and strength in terms of your
Yeah,
position in the market?
absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I'm often coming up with is slogans for t-shirt, like dog mum slogans stuff for t-shirts. And if I just put into AI, like, come back to me with some slogans, they're not very good, or you don't get them, they're not funny. But when I can give it my thoughts of I want things like this, I want things like that, then it can help me to, it's just
Yeah.
like brainstorming with
Yeah.
somebody else. So in
Yeah.
terms of if you're working on your own, it's really good. But I do think there's still an element of when you're in a team collectively thinking together, you're gonna always come up with things that AI wouldn't come up with. I think where it is really good is to take that weight of the like the admin side of stuff. So
Yeah.
when you're working on a pitch for a brand and you want to go and do a competitor analysis, for example, I've used that recently with a pitch. It allowed us to literally, in the space of 2 minutes, go and just pull all the information on our brand's competitors and what they were doing, what media coverage they've been doing, what have they been doing talking about a specific subject, to then into a condensed pack almost that we could then read through, click the links if we wanted to go and read more. So then we could then take that to create our insights to then help form our strategy and so on. So
Yes.
that is something that you might normally get a junior person to do. And, traditionally in PR, the juniors have got so much to do. They've got the coverage. If, they're doing a campaign and there's loads of coverage, they've got to log, but they've also got to do this research for a new business pitch. And often that sits outside of the scope of the day-to-day work, plus the selling into media. And that's much harder now. So that's much more time consuming for
Mhm.
them to try and land that. So, and teams are a lot smaller. So I think it can help take off that work that was maybe forcing, especially young people in PR, but most agencies, when you've got new business, staying late every night to get that work done to
Yes.
save. I think see it more of a time saver than a saving on staff,
Yes.
because
I like
you
that.
still need to analyze that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just, you touched on a few things. One, you talked about that actually some of your best work is where you're paired up with someone who's neurotypical. Thinking about the industry, I mean, you're now an independent, and I'm interested to know if what your views are in terms of like the communications industry. Is it supportive of individuals that are neurodiverse? Has it been designed with dyslexic thinkers in mind from the start? And I suppose thinking about moving forward, you know, is there something you know now about how your mind works that was probably the last one. That if you so let's answer about the structural, like what the communications industry needs to look like to really ensure that they are maximizing diverse thinkers, but equally encouraging that diversity, neurodiversity into the industry and supporting it.
Yeah, so I think PR has always fascinated me within the world of marketing, because you've got to be a jack of all trades, right? You've got to be
Yeah.
able to do the finance, you've got to be able to be the client services director, you've also got to be a salesman because you've got to pitch to journalists, you've got to be a copywriter, you've got to be a creative, you've got to be an events manager. There's so much you have to do, whereas everything else in PR, you're just one of those hats.
Yes.
In marketing, sorry. And one thing I always think that PR is lacking that could learn from advertising is there's always, when you're coming up with a creative ad campaign, there's a copywriter and there's a creative, and they're partnered pretty much from university and they work their career together,
Right.
because
Interesting.
someone's got the idea of the visual, or we'll work with this celebrity, or what if our ad was this, and then the copywriter is the person that puts the words to that to tell that story. And
Yes.
that's how ads are bought. Ads are mini movie, are aimed to be like a
Yes.
mini movie, etc. And you see that in films as well. There's a lot of, duo brothers and things that are writing and directing movies together, and they probably
Yes.
have that, counteracting each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I think PR is something that would be incredibly powerful if it worked that way. I have seen some agencies where they look at the Myers-Briggs, like the color wheel, to try and make
Yes.
sure that a team has a bit of each color because that's a perfect balance. But I've never really seen where it's looked at for, have we got a neurodiverse and a neurotypical
Mm.
person on the team? I've worked with someone, Ginny Patton, who she says I've inspired her with her teenage son who's dyslexic to look at him differently and support him, and feels that that's a big part of his growth. But also, she actively hires for neurodiverse people from
Interesting.
working with me
Yeah.
because she's seen how I will think of stuff that she never would have thought of.
Yeah.
But
Ah,
she's always pointed that out to me as well. Like, she's definitely one of the people that helped me realize these are the things that I can spot that other people can't.
yes. So she's been
Um,
a real supporter, really.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah.
and that was one of the like turning points for me as well, was her highlighting these things, and I was like, really, you wouldn't have come up with that? And her and someone else was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it's obvious. And they're like, no, it's not obvious. But to me, it's
Yes.
black and white, but to them, it's
Yeah.
not.
Yes. Interesting. I did a podcast recently actually with Ginny on ageism in the industry. So I'll have to get in touch and ask her about this particular topic as well. She's
Oh yeah,
great.
definitely. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
amazing. So I've worked with her Ready or Not agency, and we worked on a client together. But there was things like that I was looking at the data from Kayak on all the searches for where people were flying to. And at the year that Ekin Su had won Love Island, I'd noticed that the top 20 had changed, and there was like some new Italian towns and some new Turkish ones, not your normal place destinations. So I was like, we could link this to the Love Island effect and create this story. Like, whether or not it was, it
Yeah.
just seemed to be a bit of a coincidence. And the fact that finally, most of the time, the top 20 is exactly the same places. So it's really hard when the media are like, where's hot this year? And you're like, the same as last year, the same as the year before. So this was a new trend, but being able to put that, oh, it's Love Island, has got people wanting to go and visit the homeland, the motherland of Ekin-Su and Davide, gave us a spin on that. And that was one of the things that Ginny said, I never would have put that two and two together, like that I can spot patterns in data. So even when you'd think that a dyslexic person might not be good with numbers and might not be good with data, things jump out at us that other people
Yeah.
don't see. And so yeah, we worked on that together, and hopefully, one day we'll get to work together again. Now she's sort of starting back up on her own.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I just think she's such an inspiration, how she's like actively encouraging um people that think differently to her to help
Mm.
her learn.
Mm.
And you just, at the end of the day, it's about creating the best, campaigns and ideas for clients. And there's never any judgment if there's a typo in anything that I've written, or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which is
so,
which is really refreshing.
yeah.
Just thinking about younger generation coming through, thinking about your own journey, what you've learned throughout it. Is there sort of one piece of advice that you would have given yourself earlier in your career that actually then you can apply to neurodiverse people who are thinking about coming through and having a career in communications, or perhaps are in communications but haven't, almost, it's like their dirty little secret, that they are neurodiverse. It took me, I know, a long time to be able to actually openly communicate that I am, as opposed to thinking, it was my little secret that I didn't really want to tell anyone. Um,
Yeah, I mean, when I started out, every time I got asked in a interview, what's your weakness? I was always, oh, I'm dyslexic, but I always put extra time in. I work late. I always get someone to like, proof what I'm reading. I'll write things ahead of deadlines, so I've got time to review it, blah, blah, blah. Now I will still highlight it's my weakness, but I'll also highlight it's my strength, and talk
yeah,
about the things that I bring to the table that other people in your team probably don't do. Like the problem solving thing is like that can actually save a business so much money, because if you've got a
Mm.
neurodiverse person that can come up with the solution to the problem in seconds, and then you just need someone to write that up and send that to the client. But as far as the client's concerned, you're all in a room spending an hour or two discussing it. That's saving time, but you're still charging that at the same rate. We always talk about the more senior you are, your day rate is higher, but that's because you spent all of that time learning that skill to write that press release. So even though it takes you 20 minutes instead of 2 hours when you first started, you still justify your rate of what you're charging out at because it's your skill.
And your
So you're paying
expertise,
you're paying
yes.
for a skill. So it's still the same. You're not pricing things based on how many minutes or hours you're working. You're pricing it on the skill and the service that
Yes.
you're offering. If you look at other industries, if you're a footballer, you get paid more if you've got a skill and you're good at kicking a ball in a goal versus someone who's defending it. So, we're not, they're all on the pitch and they're all as a team making that happen. But we don't really look at it like that in PR. It's just
Mm.
very flat rate, what level you are,
Mm.
how many years experience have you got? And that's what you get paid for, as
Mm.
opposed to what your actual skills are.
Mm. It's really interesting you saying that because it was one of the things that Ginny and I talked about when we did the podcast, which is actually thinking about the structure of agencies and career path and how we value it. Because I think from a neurodiversity perspective, but equally from an ageism perspective, I think there does need to be a rethink whereby actually you're valued on what you bring and your contribution as opposed to um, this sort of linear sort of stepping stone of going, up the ranks. I know talking to lots of independents, a lot of independents say they leave the industry because they become glorified paper pushers and are no longer doing the work they they loved. So it's interesting that actually when we thought about ageism, equally when we think about neurodiversity, the same is true, that sometimes those structural challenges um, are perhaps preventing you being able to share the best, share your
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And actually, if you're given that freedom to be able to do so and have that voice, how it can be really instrumental.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Because I might come up with the solution to a problem in 5 minutes, but I might need an hour and a half to write a press release when a neurotypical person might be able to write that press release in 15 minutes. So
mm,
it's about putting people into the right work. Like you
mm,
sometimes see it people who are really good at selling in, but cannot multitask and are not good managing multiple clients. Like you often see it when people become to account manager level, and sometimes it's quite often men. And I don't mean that in a sexist way. It's just, we know women are natural multitaskers, and that's just through the career. I've seen that when some men get to AM level, it's a real struggle to go from managing your own time and your own clients to managing up and managing down and across the board. And some people are just really good at selling in, that actually people create these media roles. So their job is to go out and schmooze journalists, build those connections, and just manage all the selling in and the pitching and stuff. But they're also the ones that then give you that strategy and insight on what media are looking for because they've got those relationships. And agencies that have that, the same as they create a creative director, again someone who's really creative, or a strategist, or agencies that have those roles, you see how all those people work really well together.
yeah.
But they're not necessarily always breaking it down, and everyone's still expected from a junior level to have to do everything. And I
Mm.
think it's better of looking at people as to what their skill is, and is that
And
a
what
skill
their
that we need
strengths.
in the agency? Like,
Yeah.
what are we lacking? Like, don't just have one creative director, you should have a creative team. Like, that creative team doesn't mean that all they can do is come up with ideas. They also might be the ones who are quite good to pitch it to the clients or pitch it to journalists because they're excited and bubbly people. They also might be good at being at the events, but get someone else to plan, this is what we're doing, and then hand them the schedule or the plan of what they need to go and do. It's about just using everyone's skills and not forcing people to do the stuff that they're weak at, because it's poor time management as well. And I think that's what can often cause over servicing and undelivering on things.
Interesting. Well, it's been really lovely talking to you, and thank you for sharing your experience with us. And yeah, we'll hopefully hear more from you soon.
Great, thank you.